This is a super positivity practice session based on a simple fact that while presence is, absence is absent. Because at the precise moment when presence is, absence is absent. Only presence is. Also, absence can never come because there can never be a moment of absence because this moment would be presence. And presence cannot be both present and absent at the same time. So the moment of absence will never come, can never come into being, right? Can never come into being. Okay, so if you understand this simple fact, all the rest of the practice follows. This kind of practices are necessary to familiarize ourselves with our timeless functioning, because in the appearance of this 3D physical life, it seems that we are like an object in time space, but psychologically, or as mind, or as consciousness, this is not the case, because maybe there is such a thing like chronological time, but there is no psychological time, because as consciousness there is no becoming, because if we stripe down everything to presence, presence cannot become present. So is presence just is presence is, right? So we familiarize ourselves with this fact. So let's start. While presence is present, absence is absent. So while presence is, absence is absent. Only presence is. Only presence is. There is no absence in presence, and there is no presence in absence. Right? This is the same as saying that there is perfection, let's say, and there cannot be any amount of imperfection in perfection, because perfection wouldn't be perfection anymore. So while perfection is, imperfection cannot be. So the next thing to see is that imperfection needs perfection to be imperfection, right? Because imperfection needs some quantity of perfection in order to be imperfection. But if there would be a small amount of imperfection in perfection, perfection wouldn't be perfection. So there would be only imperfection, and total imperfection cannot be. So total imperfection is impossible. It is absolute lack. Total absence, which is absent, which is impossible. Okay, so we will see how everything is based on this simple fact that we understood in the first part of this practice session. Everything can be striped down to this presence, where we can see that while presence is, absence is absent. So while perfection is, imperfection cannot be. So if there is reality and illusion, this is still the same. right? That there cannot be any reality within illusion. So we don't need to do anything with illusion, because illusion doesn't have a reality. Illusion is illusion. This is also the same with this statement that truth is true and nothing else is true. Truth is true and nothing else is true. Truth is true and nothing else is true. As there is reality and illusion, right? Like there is truth and falsity, but there is no any reality within illusion. In the same way, there is no any truth in falsity. So falsity is falsity and truth is true. And truth doesn't have to fight with falsity, right? So only truth is true. Only truth is true. Because reality is the only reality. Reality is the only reality. There is only one reality. Reality is reality, and there is only one reality. So truth cannot become true in the same way as presence cannot become present, or perfection cannot become perfection. Perfection cannot become perfection. Perfection cannot become perfection in the same way as presence cannot become present, or completeness cannot become completeness. Completeness cannot become completeness in the same way as presence cannot become present, or independence cannot become independence. If it would become independence, it would mean that it would depend on something to become independence. So independence must be independence in the same way as presence cannot become present. Presence cannot become present. Also freedom cannot become freedom. Freedom cannot become free. Freedom is already free. Freedom is already free. Freedom is already free. Freedom cannot become free. Also we can see that while presence can resist being presence, being totally present, absence cannot resist being totally absent. Total absence cannot be. If we leave absence to be absence, totally absence, total absence cannot resist being, because total absence would be absent. So we don't need to fight any absence, because in leaving it alone to be absence, it succumbs by itself. We never fight illusion with reality, because illusion has no reality. And if we try to fight illusion, then it is like illusion is something to our mind, and resisting illusion, or trying to fight illusion, would only fortify it, as if it would be real for us, right? That we are fighting with something. So there is only one reality. There is only one reality, because reality cannot meet another reality. So in the same way as we don't have to make presence become present, we don't need to fight any absence, because there is no real absence. There is no absence. Absence hasn't happened yet. Absence hasn't happened yet. The moment presence is, absence is not. So absence cannot be present. There cannot be a moment of absence because that moment would be presence. And presence cannot be present and absent at the same time. So while presence is, absence is absent. While timelessness is, time is absent. Right? Because time needs interruption. Time means many moments. But in order to be many moments, there has to be a non-moment in between. But that moment of non-moment cannot really be. There cannot be a moment of non-moment. Right? So time is only conceptual because these moments are conceptual. So something external can be or not be present. But presence itself is not outside of ourselves, is not something to be measured. So presence is the same with being. Presence is the same with being. Presence is the same with being. And it's not somewhere else. It's not somewhere else. It's not here as opposed to there. Right? It's better to say that it's not somewhere else. So this presence is our reality. This presence is our reality. Is actually our consciousness. Consciousness itself. Being. Presence. And as we have seen, this is the same with truth, with completeness, with perfection, with clarity. Right? Clarity is the same. Clarity again. Clarity cannot become clarity from confusion. Right? Confusion doesn't become clarity in the same way as truth cannot become truth, in the same way as perfection cannot become perfection, in the same way as completeness cannot become completeness. Right? So being itself cannot be or not be. Being must be. There has to be a primordial beingness in order to say that something is or something is not. Right? So to exemplify, we can see that when we say that, for example, I have no confidence, we say this with great confidence. Right? Only with confidence we can say that I have no confidence, because this confidence that can be or not to be is conceptual, is an idea, right? But there is a primordial confidence which we cannot escape, because only with confidence we can say that I am not confident. So we cannot escape our confidence. We cannot escape our confidence. In the same way, we cannot escape our presence in order to say that presence is present or not. So we are familiarizing ourselves with this deeper level of ourselves, right? Which is prior to saying that presence can be or not be, or that confidence can be or not be. In the same way, to say that I have no power, this is power, right? In the same way, if we victimize ourselves and we say that I have no power, all this is psychologically again. If we say that I have no power, this is power. To say that I have no power is power. To say that I have no creativity, this is creativity. This is born out of creativity. We cannot escape our creativity. We cannot escape our confidence. So confidence is, creativity is. Okay, so we were saying that this is a super positivity practice session. So again, this is because negativity or lack of any kind, right? Lack of any kind is basically an absence of some positive quality. The negative, the absence, cannot be of itself. So let's get back to perfection a little bit. There cannot be imperfection and perfection, but we can see that imperfection needs perfection in order to be imperfection, because imperfection is actually an absence of perfection. Is not Imperfection cannot be a quality on itself. It cannot stand alone. Absolute imperfection would succumb into itself, into its non-reality, in the same way as absence would be absent, or lack is lacking, because absolute lack cannot really be. So, if we talk about abundance, let's say, there is only abundance. Abundance is the only value. Abundance, for example, is the same with presence, right? Presence is abundantly present. Presence is abundantly present. Presence is abundantly present. Presence is abundantly present. Presence cannot lack presence. Presence cannot lack presence. Abundance cannot be lacking. So we don't need to fight the absence of something, right? Because we cannot fight with an absence. The absence has to be an absence of something. But if this something doesn't sustain this absence by fighting with it, then this absence is absent by itself. So there is no need to fight with the absence, in the same way as we don't need to fight with illusions. In the same way, truth is not on the same level with falsity. So doing this practice, in a way, brings synchronicity into our lives, because there is only one reality. So again, while presence is, absence cannot be. There cannot be any moment of absence, because that moment is presence, right? So there cannot be both presence and absence at the same time. So absence is absent, and absence hasn't started yet, because in the precise moment when presence is, only presence is, only presence is, only presence is. Absence cannot come into being. Absence cannot come into presence, because when presence is, so reality is, and there is only one presence. and this presence is omnipresent. This presence is omnipresence. So there is only one presence. This is the same as saying that there is only one reality. So there is no other presence. And by saying that there is no other presence, we are saying that there is no other cause. There cannot be any other standalone cause. This is the only cause, which cannot be caused. So the idea of outside causation falls. The idea of outside causation cannot stand in this omnipresence, right? Because omnipresence is all presence. So concepts are only images that exist as appearances, but these ideas, these concepts, don't have a life of their own outside of reality, outside of this reality, outside of this omnipresence. They don't have a reality of their own, meaning they don't have a power of their own. The only power there is this omnipresence. So there is only one reality. It is the same reality. Even the concept of me, is it really me, right? Is it really I? There is a difference between I and me. Me is defined. Me versus the others, right? Me is defined like a concept. I has a different quality. I has this quality of presence. Okay, so absence hasn't started yet. Absence hasn't started yet. Time hasn't started yet. We never lived in time even for a second. We never lived in time even for a second because we never stepped out from presence. We cannot step out from presence into some other moment, into some other presence, right? All these moments, all these other moments are concepts, but we have never stepped into a concept. So absence hasn't started yet. Time hasn't started yet. Absence cannot come into being. Being is. Being doesn't become. Being cannot become. Being is. Presence cannot become present. Presence is. The moment presence is, absence is absent. The only value there is this presence, is this abundance. Abundance is. Abundance cannot be lacking because of the inherent value of reality, the inherent value of presence. So this value is something that we cannot change. We cannot say that presence is not present. Or if we say that, we lie, right? We lie. We say that from the standpoint of presence. So we cannot be non-present. We cannot not to be. So we cannot be a victim. Truly, we cannot be a victim. Now, this is as a mind, as a spirit. But in the same way, we say that there is a chronological time, but there is no experience of chronological time, meaning we can only experience or be the experience. We don't have an experience actually. There is no other experience than this consciousness experience. somehow the only experience is this experience as mind, as consciousness, and disregarding a little bit physical experience is totally experience, because we are the experience. And if we decontaminate a little bit physical experience for a while, we decontaminate ourselves as being, as consciousness, as ourselves. This is total, because only the experience as consciousness is, I don't know how to say this, but only the experience of ourselves is. There is no other experience.